This is, I gotta be honest with you. By the way, I think the speech is going to be great, but I don't know how you do this for 90 minutes.
The hardest thing was doing it during Biden, when the speech was a stupid campaign speech. And I just let you go down.
Joe Biden, the worst president in American history. I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. We've ended weaponized government where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent, like me. How did that work out? Not too good. Not too good. As you know, we inherited from the last administration an economic catastrophe and an inflation nightmare. A woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her? SoftBank, one of the most brilliant anywhere in the world, announced a $200 billion investment. OpenAI and Oracle, Larry Ellison, announced $500 billion investment, which they wouldn't have done if Kamala had won. In recent years, our justice system has been turned upside down by radical left lunatics. The United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense, with no security, with no anything. Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes.
A decidedly partisan address from President Trump last night before a joint session of Congress. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Wednesday, March 5th. With Joe, Willie, and me, we have the co-host of our fourth hour and contributing writer at The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, the host of Way Too Early, Ali Vitale, and co-founder of Axios, Mike Allen. Joe, what a night. What did you make of it?
Well, you know, I just heard on Ali's show one of the best summaries. It really was almost like it was written by Chat GPT. I mean, that's Jake said that. I was thinking fifth verse, same as first, second, third, fourth. Willie, there were the insults, there were the taunts, there were the exaggerations, there was the partisanship, top to bottom. There was the personal attacks, attacking people by name. And, of course, the facts that were just wrong, whether it was the United States spending more money on Ukraine or calling himself the greatest president with the greatest start. Oh, by the way, did you hear that number two is George Washington? I have not seen the historical treatise on that yet. But that's what President Trump said last night. Of course, the question early on, why can't Democrats just stand up and clap and be nice? This, of course, after he'd already taken to insulting him and calling Joe Biden the worst president in American history. I'm quite confident that 10, 20 years from now, when they're ranking presidents, Joe Biden will be doing very well along with other presidents that have actually gotten bipartisan things accomplished. But I will say, Willie, for me, there's just so much nonsense. I cannot believe an independent voter wouldn't look at this speech and just turn it off and just go, enough. There was a little bit of news, though, and that was on Ukraine. I think that probably was really the only news that came out of this last night that was really significant, and that is that Donald Trump said the peace talks were back on and they were moving toward a peaceful settlement.
Yeah, President Trump said he got a letter from President Zelensky saying he's ready, despite what happened in the Oval Office last Friday, ready to sit down and have these conversations to work out that minerals deal and also to begin to negotiate an end to the war. So if you're looking for some kernel of news, it wasn't really news, but at least there was something in there. But yeah, otherwise felt like a campaign speech, as we predicted, you and I here yesterday, Joe. In fact, in some cases, going back to a 2016 campaign speech with insults to Elizabeth Warren, just catching some strays there in the chamber. And the fact checkers had a very busy night. We're going to go through a bunch of the stuff that the president said, which simply is untrue or is an exaggeration or needs much, much more context than, of course, he was ever going to provide. But it was what we thought it was going to be. It was Donald Trump saying that he has already started this golden age despite the 6 weeks of chaos that we have witnessed, Joe. And Democrats sitting there in some ways kind of futilely holding up their auction paddles or their whiteboards in protest of the president.
Yeah, Democrats still not exactly sure how to respond. Sometimes not. Well, I'll leave it to Democrats to figure out how they respond. But they certainly still don't seem to have any game plan, though. I will say the response seemed effective. Mika, as we go to issues, again, last night was really like a campaign rally. It was called by Brit Hume, senior Fox News political analyst, and Brit's been doing this for 40 years, at least. He called it the most partisan speech ever held in that chamber, and I think it also was the longest. But as we talk about the two policies that were hanging over that speech that didn't really get much of a mention, one, of course, were the tariffs that saw the market go down again significantly yesterday. It keeps going down. And the second was Ukraine. And I will say the top two opinion pieces in the Wall Street Journal opinion page, the top one talks about the tariffs and how the tariffs are going to pound the very people who voted for Donald Trump. They're going to disproportionately hurt farmers. They're going to disproportionately hurt working Americans that voted for Donald Trump. They're going to disproportionately hurt people in swing states. And he said, Mr. Trump's tariff spree is the triumph of ideology over, well, common sense. Let's hope the president soon comes to his senses. And then they talk about J.D. Vance's Forgotten Wars. And the subhead there is, maybe next time don't insult stalwart allies during a TV interview. It would have been nice for that to be cleaned up last night when Britain, and by the way, the entire ideological divide in Britain, outraged by the fact that the British stood shoulder to shoulder with Americans through one war after another, died, and J.D. Vance mocking them, and the Wall Street Journal editorial page taking issue with that, too. Those are real issues that are going on now. Let's talk, though, about this pep rally that was held last night that, again, was just very short on news.
Yeah, there's been some criticism, the Democrats holding up what have been called bingo cards. I think that the signs that say false, it's very hard to keep up sometimes with the falsehoods. And I thought that was the only way to do it at that point. When you have falsehoods being spoken, it's important to point that out.